Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. You know what it is. All right, man. Just as promised, I said I was gonna give my, my review, my thoughts on the Hands of Stone movie. I got a chance to check it out on Friday, which was opening night. I saw the movie, and I'll tell you what I think about it in a minute. But just a side note, one thing that bothers me sometimes about biopics sometimes is the running time. Some of these movies about actual people can sometimes tend to go a little too long, well over 2 hours. Some have been close to 3 hours. The JFK movie was like almost 3 hours. So, shit like that. But I will say this much for this movie. This movie only has a running time of 145 minutes. That includes the end credits. So the movie goes by pretty quick. It sort of tries to get to the point. It doesn't dig too deep into Roberto Duran's boxing career. It's pretty much surrounding his two fights with Sugar Ray Leonard, the first two fights. The first fight where Roberto Duran won, and then the infamous No Mas fight. Now, like I said, for most of the movie, I liked the movie a lot. It was a good movie, real good movie. I like the part how it shows the scenery of Panama. Now, I don't know if the movie was actually shot in Panama because sometimes they'll say this is Brazil and they'll actually shoot the movie in Puerto Rico because it actually goes by production budget. So if it was cheaper to shoot somewhere else, they'll shoot it in Mexico and say it's Cuba, or they'll shoot it in Cuba and say it's Puerto Rico, or they'll shoot it in Puerto Rico and say it's Dominican Republic and shit like that. But one thing I did like is the accurate portrayal of the people in the country of Panama, where you have people of all walks of life, the light Hispanics and the dark Hispanics, and they all are as one. They support each other as a country. And I think out there they don't see color. It's about country, which is the country of Panama, unlike where I'm at. So that was the good part about the movie. So shout out to the director. He did a good job on that. Now, I know some of y'all saw Dante's review of the movie, and I agree with Dante about, the Sugar Ray Leonard stuff. Now, I've had my own issues with Sugar Ray Leonard because Sugar Ray Leonard was a motherfucker to negotiate with. I don't like how he played a lot of games and treated a lot of boxers outside of boxing, and how he refused to fight certain boxers. But as far as the Roberto Duran go, Roberto Duran claims to this day that he didn't say no mas when it was verified through several people that they heard him say no mas. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if he say he didn't say it when everybody knows he did, that's pretty much on him. Now, as far as the Sugar Ray Leonard fight go, you guys gotta watch for those innuendos where Sugar Ray Leonard, after he lost the first fight, he was sitting up talking about that he fell into the trap with trying to brawl against Roberto Duran because of how Roberto Duran insulted his wife, and that caused him to lose the fight. Once again, they was trying to subliminally take those secret shots at black dudes. These black fighters are runners and all that type of shit. And then, just as Dante said, when Sugar Ray Leonard was entering the ring, now keep in mind, he's the American and people booing him and shit, which happens a lot today, but they just made it look like Roberto Duran got bamboozled by Bob Arum and Don King, and, they got rushed into the fight saying that it was impossible for him to drop 40 pounds in 3 months, which that was complete bullshit, because if I'm not mistaken, shit, Canelo walk around at 180 when he not fighting, and he sheds weight for his 155 weight limit. So, that was kind of lame. But you got to expect shit like that when it comes to movies, because at the end of the day, it's scripted. Of course, they got to find some way to make it look like Roberto Duran got did wrong when obviously that wasn't the case. We know that. But you know, as far as them doing Sugar Ray Leonard a disservice on how they portrayed him, I mean, you know, like I said, if you know how Sugar Ray Leonard was, I done did videos about Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard was a son of a bitch to negotiate with in fights. You know, I do like the fact how they made it look like, you know, Roberto Duran's people signed a, you know, he had a power of attorney with his people, and the dude basically signed him to take the $8 million which he got for the Sugar Ray Leonard fight without his consent and that type of shit. And then the meeting with Don King, where Don King said he couldn't give them another month to extend the fight because, you know, everything was set in stone. The ticket prices was, you know, set. The tickets were sold. The closed circuit TV shit, and Don King threatened to sue him for breach of contract. You know, I hope I'm not telling too much, but like I said, man, you guys draw your own conclusion. Like I said, I'll recommend the movie, but if you a diehard Sugar Ray Leonard fan, you might be a little pissed off when you see how they portrayed Sugar Ray Leonard. They sort of portrayed him as a coward fighter, because that was one of the emphasis. You know, they put emphasis on that. You know, Roberto Duran called him a coward several times throughout the fight, called him a runner, and saying, look how he has this gigantic ring and all that type of shit. And it was funny, like when he gets home, people are throwing rocks at him, cussing him out.